Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at how to use multiple time frames, in particular the higher time frame DP support and resistance areas, to then gauge your shorter term actual trade setups. And I'd like to look at a great example that's unfolded in the last day or so on it's one of the Indian markets, crude oil over there in India. But as usual, we start with the risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and trading purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. Also remind you that all the techniques we look at can be used on any time frame and any markets, as long as the markets are liquid. So here I'll be looking at a 5 and 15 minute chart of crude oil over there in India, but you can be looking at, say, 15-minute forex with hourly for the higher time frame, or say daily US stocks with weekly for the higher time frame. The same process applies. So here I want to first go out to the higher time frame, because the trade setup we'll be looking at was this TS3 W3 sell setup here. So as usual, we go out to the higher time frame, which is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So on the 5-minute chart, logically would go out to the 15-minute chart. Just wait until that data comes in. Right, there we are. I'll scroll back and have a look at the last yesterday. Basically, the TS3 sell was in here. So what do? Well, we put our DPs on our charts. Now remember, these are on the charts in advance. So if I use like our training mode and I jump back to here somewhere, there's our last pivot high. So we right mouse click, we place decision point. Can you see it, how it's on the chart there in advance? It's out there ready for you. So if I now turn our training mode off, can you see how crude oil went up into this high here, made a high right at that DP level? Can you see that? There, and reversed and came down. So now when I go to our 5-minute chart, let's have a look at how these setups here unfold a bit later. So here's on a 5-minute chart, we can see our 15-minute chart there is unfolding quite nicely. The high came in right at that level. In other words, it's a good trade setup. Remember, markets go in cycles. They go through about 50% of the time or slightly longer, where they're basically random and you can't get any discernible pattern. But then we look for times when the markets like this make meaningful reversals right at our support resistance zones. In other words, the market pattern is starting to become clear. So after this, the market trend is deemed to be down. As it comes down, would you be interested in this potential buy setup here? Well, no, because it's coming down off resistance. Our MTP trend is also red, indicating the large degree trend is down. So therefore, can you see how this TS3 W3 trade setup is in the direction of the large degree trend, coming off this larger degree support zone, larger degree resistance zone? Let's right mouse click over the red cell bar, do analysis, and that gives you a potential trade into this first target here, which would be the typical wave 3 WPT of our W3 trade setup. Remember, we use position size to keep our initial risk small and under control. Now, we can also use the higher time frame DPs for our targets as well, because this is quite a short target. Here the target is only 2.4R, a profit of 2.4R, or 2.4 times greater than the initial risk. So again, if we go back to our higher time frame chart, remember these DPs are on the chart in advance, so we could have gone back to this previous pivot here as the market was unfolding. So again, if I use our training mode, so this would be when you were just in this short trade here, you go back to this level, right mouse click, do DP. That would give you an area of potential support, but can you see it's on the chart in advance, again before the market gets there? So I turn training mode off. Can you see how the market on the 15-minute chart went down to this level where it came into support, off which the market has then rallied? But can you see how we actually had a reversal right at this level? So in other words, the picture was clear. So now when we go down to our 5-minute chart, can you see how rather than coming out or looking to come out at this first target, you can say, well, actually I'd like to come out at the higher time frame support zone, which is down here, or at the very least, once we get into this higher time frame support zone, perhaps trail at say 1 tick above the bar highs, which would be around here, about there somewhere, which means you'd have increased your profit from 2.4R, where it was before, into approximately 6R as we have at the moment. So a good example of how to first of all look for periods when the markets are clear, in other words they're making meaningful reversals at higher time frame support and resistance levels, and then to gauge your shorter term trade setups that are in the direction of that larger degree trend. And as you can see here, the last couple of days it's been a great example on a 5-minute chart of crude oil over there in India, where we had a nice TS3 W3 short into this larger degree support zone for a nice 6R profit. If I clear everything off, you can see actually at this level here we actually had a VS set up. This was at our support level on our black MTP trend, so you could have then reversed to long, and you could have been sitting into a long trade at the moment waiting to come up to this potential target here. And as you can see, the market's actually declining down here at the moment. Remember, all trades don't necessarily go as anticipated. Some trades are good, some trades are not. That's just the way the market is. I mean, in this case here, as you start to get up into these levels, perhaps you might want to start trailing with our ATR stop, which is around about here, and maybe locking in a small profit. But that management is for another video. Just as a PS on this, I want to have a quick look at the market going up into this high here, because if I right mouse click over this high and do Elliott wave intermediate, for you guys who are experts on MTPredictor will see this is a 5-wave sequence with the high coming in right at the typical wave 5 WPT. So that was another reason why the market may be making a high at this higher time frame resistance. What do we know about 5-wave sequences? Well, what we know is if the market goes down to the DP from the prior wave 4, which would be here, and exceeds it, which it did, then it's likely to run from the DP from the start of the entire prior sequence. So if I go back to the start of the 5-wave sequence, which is here, right mouse click, do decision point, that's our same larger degree support zone down here. So here, not only was our higher time frame support zones providing support and resistance, but also our pattern here on the 5-minute chart was telling us the same thing. So that was another reason why this TS3 sell setup here could have been run into the larger degree support zone down there.